welcome to Workshop Wednesdays with Humane in the Membrane. In this series, we talk about the topic and we provide you with additional tools and resources to work it out. My name is Christina and I'm the CEO of Humane in the Membrane. I'm a coach, leader, and educational consultant with a heart for education and a mind for innovating learning experiences. I work with business organizations, nonprofits, develop organizational training, processes, and learning experiences that connect both the heart and mind. So, in this episode of Workshop Wednesdays, I wanted to talk to educators. A lot of us are returning back to school. We're in our professional development. We're getting back into our classrooms. There's this excitement and the energy that always comes forward as we start a new school year, that anticipation of what to expect, as well as feeling confident about some of the lessons we learned from last year and what we want to take into this school year. So I coach a lot of new teachers and leaders, and teachers are always excited, new teachers especially, are always excited about getting into their classrooms, decorating their classrooms, getting the buckets, getting the labels from Teachers Pay Teachers, color coding everything, etc., etc. In talking to my teachers, though, one of the things that I don't hear us talk, I think, enough about are what are those systems and processes that are going to align with the space that we've just created in our classroom that gets kids thriving, that builds relationships, and gets us to the heart of what we really want to do, which is deeper teaching and learning, right, in our classrooms. So what if I told you that if you establish consistent systems and processes that will set you up for success, your class will minimize, as I like to call it, the cray-cray wheel. When everything goes crazy in classrooms, sometimes we have those. But what if I told you you can minimize those and your class would be fully operational with your students before March Madness hits? I know, right? I learned that lesson the hard way. When I first started teaching, a couple of years of teaching, I remember I was teaching in Atlanta. So I taught high school is where I started. And we got the Harry Wong book, The First 100 Days of School. We had sessions with new teachers where we talked about things like classroom management. And I felt confident going into my classroom. In theory, the reality hit that my kids were different and they were living human beings who had free will, and not everything worked the way that it was planned out in our professional learning and in the book, actually. And I just noticed that over time, one thing would set kids off in another person's class and they bring it in my class. You all know the story. You're trying to get ahead of it. You're trying to have that with itness. And I found myself reacting a lot more than I responded to things that were happening in my class, number one. Number two, I felt like I wasn't building relationship enough with my kids consistently. And number three, I didn't feel like the relationships were being built enough for them to own the class. I felt like I was doing a lot of the heavy lifting and my kids were not as engaged, even though they were in a course that they signed up for, right? Kids sign up for the elective of orchestra. And these are, what we would consider at the time, well-behaved students, right? These were orchestra students. It didn't matter. Kids are kids wherever you go. And so March hits. It seems like everything breaks loose, as I like to call the wave of cray-cray. And I'm standing here just like, this cannot work. I cannot do this again. Like, I signed up to be a teacher and this is not working for me. I got to find something better. And so over time, what I recognized was that if I really wanted to build deep relationships with my kids, and I really wanted them to feel like this was their classroom, then I had to create the conditions of how they can operate and engage in this classroom. And part of that were in the systems and structures that I created and then later co-created with my kids as I developed more into my practice. So let's dive into it. Classroom systems and structures are nothing more than the routines, the procedures, and the frameworks that keep your classroom running smoothly. And as I like to say, running smoothly with the expectation that the cray-cray will come in every now and again, but your class is still able to get things done and learning is still able to happen, right? We know we've all joked about the full moon and how, barometric pressure drops and kids just like lose it, right? And so, how can we minimize that so that we are not reacting, we are responding to what our kids are needing in that moment, and learning can still happen the way that we expect it to? So, within that, your systems and structures are the backbone of your learning environment, right? The way we decorate our classrooms are the icing on the cake, right? It's the sizzle, not the steak. So, the more we have clear systems and clear structures, we can navigate smoothly with our kiddos. I like to coach my teachers in thinking about their systems and structures in this way. A lot of us know jazz. We've listened to jazz before. Oftentimes, we assume that jazz is just improvisation, that musicians are just making things up as they go along, right? But if we pull back the layer and we go deeper, we can see that jazz has chords, it has chord progressions, the structures of music that allow musicians to improvise on top of that. So it's jazz when we're thinking about systems and structures. You need to have clear systems and structures in place for your kids to have deep learning and for deep teaching to happen. In creating those systems and structures, you're helping to create consistency and predictability for both you and your students. So then why are systems and structures important? I can come up with at least 4 different reasons from personal experience and with what I've coached teachers and helped instructional coaches and leaders to help teachers with. The first thing is that having clear systems and structures reduce stress. That's fewer decisions I have to make in my classroom. Teachers make so many decisions in the moment of instruction when we're looking at behavior or what students need. By having clear systems of the battle that we've won, right? And being clear about that. The second one is it enhances student independence. We all envision a perfect classroom where our kids are attentive, they're engaged, they're going deep into their learning. We want them to own what they're doing in the learning experience. But what we fail to recognize is that simple step is that we have to begin empowering students, and we do that through the building of independence. So when kids know what to expect and they know what we expect of them, they're much more likely to continue with those behaviors. And again, it builds predictability in our space. The third thing is that it promotes a positive classroom culture. I felt in the beginning of my teaching that I had to build a culture and have systems and processes. What I didn't recognize is that they both coexist together. And so by having clear systems and structures, it creates a positive culture because it's consistent, it's going to build safety for kids, and it builds respect because it lets them know that as the teacher, I respect their time and attention in class with me, and it's that mutual exchange that we all value in our classrooms. And the last one is it frees up time for teaching. All of us have said it at some point in time, if I could just teach and not worry about these other things, right? Well, the way to do that is to have some clear systems and structures in your class that are easily implemented with your kids. Freeing up time for teaching is going to give us more of what we really want to do. We really want to get in and teach, and we want to go deep into our content. And the only way to do that is to have that predictability and consistency in structures that we don't have to think about. So then how do we create systems and structures? I'm going to give you 7 key points, mistakes that I've made and learned along the way that can help you now where you are. If you're a new teacher or you're midway into your career, or if you're a veteran teacher who just needs a refresh. If you want the long version of this video, of course, you can click the description. You can go to our YouTube channel and you can watch the full length video. So key point 1, I always ask my teachers this, no matter who I'm coaching, my teachers and leaders this. What is your instructional vision? Identify a little bit of your instructional vision. So by that, what I mean is, when it's all said and done, how do you want your class to function? How do you envision it operating throughout the school year? And definitely by March, right? Because we want to build these systems where by the time March Madness hits, we're not that impacted. So thinking about a little bit about what your instructional vision is will help you in point 2 to identify your needs. So start by identifying key areas where you feel like you need systems. Is it during transitions? Is it handing out materials? Is it collecting materials? Is it to manage behavior? I always suggest to my new teachers is to focus on some of the pain points. So when you were student teaching, or if you're a more experienced teacher than the year before, your prior school year, what were some of the pain points? What were some of those things that it just grind your gears that you could not either figure out or get it to work? That's a pain point. So let's start there. And from there, that'll empower us in a proactive way where we're responding and we're not reacting because we're creating a system in place. The third thing is to develop clear procedures. So once you have your vision of what your classroom looks like and how you want it to operate, and you've identified a couple of your needs for your classroom, then we want to develop a clear procedure. A clear procedure is not take your papers, students, drop it in the bucket. It's not take your laptop, put it in the cart, right? Think explicit, step by step. What are those step by step procedures that we want to communicate to our students, right? From start to finish. So think about from getting up from your seat to doing the procedure to coming back to your seat, right? You want to complete the circuit. For example, it could be your morning routine. That could be something like you're hanging up your coat, you turn in your folder, you start your morning activity. For upper grades, it could be you're coming in, you're sitting, doing the prompt on the board, you're completing the prompt on the board, whatever that process is. I often like to tell teachers when a lot of times they're new teachers and they're just not clear about all of the steps, it is okay for you to walk it out, right? Walk it out. So you can visualize it step by step, what's going to happen, or just literally walk it out. I've done that with teachers. Even when I'm virtual coaching, it's like, okay, so then now I want you to practice that step. Get how it feels for you and how that in turn will feel for your students, right? Our next tip is communicate and practice. So we want to build consistency and predictability. So communicate these procedures clearly to your students and have them practice, right? Fun ways to make it practice. Build consistency. That's what we want. Consistency and predictability. Key point 5 is visual supports. So depending on the age group that you're teaching, you may need some type of visual prompt in the classroom. That could be a slide deck. That could be a visual chart or diagrams. That could be explicit modeling at times to build that visual support so kids consistently remember what it looks like, what it sounds like, what it feels like in your classroom. Key point 6, and this is so important, get feedback from your students. Once you've been consistent with the procedure with your students for a while, there's nothing wrong with you asking. Now that we all get to know each other as a group, is this working for us or not? Like, what would we change, right? It does a couple of things. Number one, it's giving you some formative feedback, which you're going to do anyway as you're teaching in instruction. You want to have formative practice, right? The second thing it does, most importantly, is it builds student voice, it builds student agency, and it strengthens your culture because it's not just the teacher as the adult in the classroom or that role of authority. It's letting them know that we can share this space and we can learn from one another. Second thing it does is it builds trust and respect because it's showing kids that you respect their opinions, you value their opinion, and you trust them in ways to do what's best for your classroom. And the final key point is reflect and adjust. Remember, teaching, no matter where we are in our teaching journey, is a reflective practice. And so making sure that we set aside some time to really reflect on what worked and what made it work, as well as what didn't work and what we could change, right? Adjust where necessary. What I tell my new teachers all the time is that as you're creating systems, something else we don't consider is thinking about how you can use just creating simple systems and structures as a way to practice your formative practices, right? Getting real time feedback from students, observing and making those adjustments in the moment, right? All of those things are going to help to build that space that you truly want to have where kids are engaged in learning. So there you have it. 7 key tips for creating classroom systems and structures that can help your classroom run itself before March Madness hits. I hope you found these insights both helpful and inspiring. And if you have a tip, please put that in the comment section. I would love to hear some new tips and tricks that I haven't considered. To get started in organizing your classroom, we're offering a free light template, which is a quick start guide that's going to help you set up systems with some sample routines and procedures. If you want to access this template, all you have to do is sign up through the link in the description below and you'll get it. But that's not all. So if you really want to dive deeper, you can explore a full-length comprehensive guide and book an exclusive coaching session where you and I sit down and we work together to tailor strategies authentic to you and your unique needs in the classroom. So head over to the link, you can sign up for the free template, and you can check out our full package coaching options. Creating clear systems and structures is a game changer when it comes to the things that you desire in your classroom, which is to have better relationships with students, to have your classroom operate efficiently, and to have deeper learning. So I hope you have enjoyed this session. I will see you again in our next Workshop Wednesday with Humanity in the Membrane series. Take care. Have a wonderful school year. Bye now. I know if you've ever attended professional development, you get all of these things that you can try. And sometimes we get into analysis paralysis. It's better to start with 2 or 3 clear systems and structures that you can teach and implement with your students consistently than to have 15 that you don't know where to start. They don't know what to do. They don't know how to do it. And it just creates utter chaos. Remember, start small yet mighty. So start small. And then over time, as they master certain skills, just like in our instruction, we'll add another layer. We'll keep adding till we get where we want to go in our classroom.